Hello and welcome back again to the Grog Pod, a roguelike podcast, where each episode we talk about a roguelike game, then see that the timeline needs to be abandoned for one with more favorable reviews for it. I am your host of said podcast, Scowberger, live from the deck of the futuristic robot workshop. And with me today are my co-hosts who would like to know more.
It's me, Andrew Harshman Gundam. Pleased to be here.
This is Will, your rusty hulking beast.
And Colin, a undefined mech that hasn't been unlocked yet.
There's just a black outline where Colin's head should be, and I have
we
to
have
spend.
and we have a hero pilot joining us.
Yes, back from a different timeline. This is Woody Ciskowski again.
Hooray!
Yeah, I'm going to spend 6 coins to unlock Colin's face. Oh, there it is. Oh man, Colin, your couch is on fire.
Oh no, it's just a guy. He doesn't have a mech at all.
Oh yeah, it's just a guy, but he's got a fancy new headset, or
a
functional new headset. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Take that, condenser mics. This week we are once more going into the breach, dear friends. Talking about Into the Breach. Released February 27th, 2018. This is a game that you can kind of find everywhere. PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, you name it. iOS, Android, it's there. Netflix too, question mark?
Yeah, if you have a Netflix subscription, somehow you can get a free copy of this game on iOS or Android. So
okay, so you're not playing with your Amazon Fire Stick.
I do not think you are actually playing with like your Netflix remote or whatever.
Okay.
Didn't this come up the last time you were on, Woody?
I think it did. I think it was
Cells?
with Dead Cells. I mean, somebody at Netflix has like pretty good game taste. They're like Dead Cells, Into the Breach. They know what's up.
Woody's secretly working at Netflix. This Into the Breach comes to us from our Best Buds subset games, who you might remember from our previous episode, FTL Faster Than Light, our inaugural Omega Bowl 1 winner game.
Ooh.
Your average player of Into the Breach has about 42 hours of game time in it. And this cranks in on our popularity charts of roguelike games at the number 59th most popular roguelike game with 18,084 total reviews. Woody, you have one sentence remaining to describe this game before the gigantic gastropod blows up your apartment building.
Okay. Miniature mechs, miniature mech-tactics. That's not a sentence, is it? But I feel
Don't
that's
worry,
more of
you
a
can go back in
Predicates
time.
in there. I made
All
some
right, go
adjectives.
back in time and do a redo.
Hit the undo button.
Mechs making miniature moves. There you go.
Massively.
That's a sentence.
Mischief.
Yeah, I mean, because Scott, we were talking about this not that long ago when you were trying to hype me up on the new Armored Core game, and I was talking about how mech games are perhaps my least favorite genre of game that exists, especially like Armored Core, where the point is like this thing is going to control terribly. Yeah, because
and by control terribly, you mean giant robots, wanton destruction, explosions, even bigger enemies, and bugs. We got bugs.
Yeah, that's
Talking
true.
About Into the
But
Breach or Armored Core?
I mean, they're basically the same game. Armored Core 6, Into the Breach, it's literally the same game. They're interchangeable. Hogmind, it's anything with a mech is all in the same universe.
I mean, I think that this game very much is this is about as close to a board game as video games get that are not just direct adaptations of board games. Like you could very much like I played HeroClix a lot, which is like a miniature superhero game, and it's like very much like the rules of this kind of just stem in much of the same way.
Yeah, I think
I think of it as the way I've been thinking of it is it's basically a chess tactics or it's a chess puzzle, the game, except instead of pawns and rooks, you have giant robots.
Sure.
And they're fighting bugs.
I have a similar summary, but with a little twist. For me, it's chess blunder : the game.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm blundering left and right, but that doesn't stop it from being fun.
That's also chess for me.
Very chess-like.
Yeah, that's true. And they give you a lot of they give you a pretty decent amount of leeway. It's not like when you take your finger off of your queen, and then your opponent gives you like the little snarky look and like slowly moves the bishop across the board and knocks your queen over. Here you can actually move your piece, go back, and then if you really have messed up your turn, you can restart the whole turn over.
I'm sorry, is that how that mechanic works? Because for me, I just get a free redo on my first turn every mission. I always use it as soon as possible. No, that's only like maybe 25% of the time that I use it the first turn. Yeah, it's I think pretty fair in that regard. Crucially, though, it should I think be pointed out that this isn't your standard turn-based combat game, because this is sort of I don't know if there's a term for this, a reactive turn-based game, because your enemies are kind of operating on a different scale. You have or different timing, I should say. You have the opportunity, instead of everyone moving and attacking like all at once, you have the opportunity to react to the enemy's movements. So you know where they're going to attack and what they're going to do, and then you get to sort of respond to it. And I feel like that's not seen as often, and I find to be pretty engaging.
Well, the more the more roguelikes and kind of indie games that I've played, I realized that and I'm sure you guys have noticed this, the games essentially just become like an amalgam of mechanics that have appeared in different games, and each one is kind of like a different stew, and you kind of mix what is right to your own taste. And like this one has what Slay the Spire does, which is the yep, Will's given that knowing Slay
It
the
has to be
Spire.
mentioned every episode.
It took us a whopping 6 minutes.
As well it should, because it's the mechanic. I think I played this game before I played In the Spire. I think this game is
it predates it by
Slay the
1
Spire.
year. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And yeah, the idea of the enemies simply telling you exactly what they are going to do is, I imagine, something that like is a pretty tough sell, like from a game design standpoint, to be like, all right, we're just going to have the enemies say exactly what you're going to do, because it seems like it would take a lot of the surprise or sort of the intensity out of it. But like in reality, it makes it all the more satisfying when you actually figure out how to counteract what they're doing. And like, it feels so fair. Like, oh, this game, the thing I like about this game so much is just like, I like thinking about it, because there are so many board game. I spend a lot of time in my life explaining board games to people. And there's always there's often a moment when I'm explaining a game where I'm like, oh, also I forgot to tell you this rule. Oh, also I forgot to tell you this. And like, often I feel bad about that, because it's like, this is clearly not and video games have this problem too. Like, they clearly have additional rules that only exist in an effort to balance things. They don't exist because, yeah, like it's a rule where like, okay, you can push enemies into the water, but like not this enemy, or like this enemy is immune to something. And
exceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this game, for all of the mechanics that it has going in it, there are so few exceptions. There are so few things where it says, oh, actually, this doesn't work on the enemy. Like, anything that kind of applies to the way the game rules work to your mechs also applies to the way the enemies behave. So just like everything feels super fair from like a gameplay perspective. Like, the difficulty is still really well balanced, but it feels fair.
Every once in a while, you do get to be like, cool. I almost feel like it should have been balanced. Like, I was playing yesterday and I just threw the boss monster into a pit and it died full health. And I was like, wow, that felt really good. I mean, I had to like spend my whole turn maneuvering it around to get it there, but I was like, but I mean, the boss monsters have a little bit of resistance to being like, well, if you put them in the water, they don't immediately die. But if you put them in the pit, the bottomless pit, they die just like everything else.
Yeah, and like that goal of consistency just is so good. Like, I was playing a squad earlier today that like feeds off of smoke. Like, if they get in smoke, they get healed. And then I was playing a level where like the level just gradually fills up with more and more smoke. And like, it was super easy and like super unfair from the monster's perspective. But I was like, great. I'm glad that they didn't like add some bullshit rule where like this smoke doesn't count. It's like they make the choice to keep the rules as simple as they can and consistent as they can be, and in that, just happen to give me a gimme level.
I think it's an interesting another episode of podcast Whiplash here, where our previous episode of Balatro, I felt was there's a certain kind of randomness with roguelike games that like Balatro and Luck Be a Landlord both have, of like, hey, here's like a kind of a puzzle that's been sort of randomly generated for you, and there might not be a solution to it, and that's okay. But like this Into the Breach is almost like the most anti-random game in this genre, it feels like. You're talking about
chess.
it's
There
very
is no randomness as
deterministic.
far the only randomness that I can tell is where the things are initially placed and where the bad guys pop up in, as the turns progress. They've got the stuff emerges from the ground, more bugs progress. And then I guess you have some randomness with like
and that makes all the difference. I mean, it makes every mission fresh and very rarely. I mean, there's a little bit of sameness, but generally speaking, most of the missions feel fresh.
I mean,
not
items,
stale.
The items that you're getting along the way and making those critical decisions about trying to synergize and like trying to figure out like who gets the energy, because I want to get that extra movement, but I really want to be able to use this thing. And so there's a lot of that give and take, and that very limited resource, which is the energy that you're getting for your units. So I think that that's a strong source of variation that you
that's
get.
like a meta randomness. No, I'm more thinking, I guess, of that's outside of the chess puzzles. Within the chess puzzle, it is almost deterministic.
Well, I think a difference that is worth noting is like in Balatro, if you just had your standard deck and like didn't buy jokers or didn't upgrade cards, you would just lose. It would become a part where it is impossible to get more points. Here, you could theoretically beat this game without upgrading your mechs at all. I think it would be very difficult, but I think that the starting like array of weapons and tools that they give you is enough. It's not like Slay the Spire, where part of your goal is like, I'm going to remove bad cards and I'm going to upgrade cards to sort of maximize that. Like, I think that those games like Balatro or Slay the Spire benefit very much from like, you go in with a plan of like, I am going, like, you get your first item and you're like, great, I am going to build around this. Whereas you really don't need a plan to succeed in Into the Breach. You just have to have a good understanding of the way the game mechanics work. Like, you don't need to stick with something through the whole run. You just basically play good and win. Like,
get good, stay good, play good. Yeah, for sure. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that you could conceivably beat the game, get a victory against the lava boss level with just the starting stuff. I think there's a lot of rogue lights and likes where that is probably impossible or very close to impossible, and that feels kind of bad. Usually, it's not so pronounced that it's a huge issue, but it's an extra point, bonus points that I feel like I give Into the Breach. It's like, yeah, it is so consistent that you could win with the default folks without, even getting any meta progression. Hey, I have some harsh comments about the energy and about the items and randomness in general. But before we get there, Scott, what is the story? What is going on in this game?
I think this game begins really on like a really great note, in that, like every mech game, it starts with a giant ruined city with like smoldering smoke and just huge craters everywhere. And you come to the title screen, there's just a ruined cityscape and a little teeny tiny person sitting next to this humongous mech. And it starts with you saying, well, we lost. That's it. Game over. Oh, but wait, we have this special go back in time button where your a little pop-up message comes up. And I love these little pop-up messages in this game. It pops up, it says, humanity destroyed, Vec threat unstoppable, mission failed, and you have a default pilot, Ralph, who says, you know what? It's time to open a breach. Time to go back and try again, which really kind of just underscores the philosophy of this podcast. Really, just time travel. We'll just send it back in time and redo it. And yeah, that kicks you off with your very first squad. Oh my God,
Rift Walkers.
that's it. Yep, I've been playing so many with the Rusting Hulks. I'm like, no, that's not the one. The Rift
or
Walkers.
as Ralph would say, the Rift Walkers, I suppose. Surely he's from somewhere in the Germanic zone.
But that's almost
indeed. And then what happens? We are exposed to who are the Vec? Who's that?
Well, those are the bugs that you got to squish with your giant mechs, and how you choose to go about doing so is up to you and determined on the type of mechs that you select. Your squads, there's a whole bunch of different squads to pick from, and the continents that you pick as well. On a fresh file run, you'll have to kind of complete them in sequence, but there's a whole bunch of different islands to pick from.
There are four. Whether or not 4 counts as a whole bunch is up for debate.
Well, 3 I would say is
nice,
a few
diverse array.
I would say it's just a
selection.
bunch. It's not a whole bunch.
It's some.
Okay, got
it's
it.
Some, right?
It's technically 5 islands if we want to get
Handful?
pedantic
That's
about
true.
it.
You're right.
a
One of them is
variety.
more of a peninsula. It's Beck Peninsula.
It's the Monster Island.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like story wise, that's almost kind of it, right? You get like little snippets of like dialogue or monologue from some of the characters that you encounter and some of the things that your time traveling pilots say here and there, but it's nothing really more than like, oh, we're gonna smash him this time, just like we did back in Old Earth or something. And you're like,
I mean, this strikes me as, I mean, I don't have great insight into the process of designing this game, but it very much strikes me as a sort of mechanics first premise of like, we like the idea of being able to reset turns, and sort of the mech mechanics and like skinning of that is just kind of a way to sort of fit around that. And the whole time, like they don't really explore the merits of or demerits of time travel very much. Like that doesn't really factor into the game. You can carry a pilot over. Like that's the only sort of progression between runs is you can carry a pilot over from a previous run.
Well, you unlock new ones too by picking up time pods.
Yeah, but you can actually, like, if you fail a mission or if you win the game, you can carry your fully leveled up pilot into a new game, which is fine. I don't think that it adds very much. But it is kind of a depressing thought that like in every time, the premise is like in every timeline, basically humanity is caught in this war with the Vec, and like these pilots are just like spending their whole rest of time until they die, just like going in time and to like save humanity in a new timeline.
Indeed. And maybe it's a little early, but I think you're maybe tapping into one of the failings of this game. I do appreciate the less is more approach with the story and with like not getting too caught up in the ramifications of like time travel and whatnot. But the pilots having to fight for all time until the end of everything is depressing. And it would have been great if there was any kind of end game where like you maybe get to end that cycle,
some sort of pleasure dome.
You haven't got there
have
yet?
Another sixth island unlocks with a special boss fight. Like I was shocked when I finished this game.
It is
not
actually
more to it.
It is pretty shocking, especially when you think of like the previous game that these guys did was FTL, which like by the time you actually get far enough and then make it to that like flagship or whatever, you're like, holy shit, this is a boss. And you feel like you had stand no chance. Like the final boss of FTL or of Into the Breach is like, doesn't even really exist.
It's just the final level, really.
Right. And you just have to sort of defend a bomb. And there are like, it's a fairly hard level. And then but you're given a decent amount of help of like volcanoes erupting and like chasms of lava opening up. And then, then it just ends, which honestly, I don't really mind. Like, I find this game sort of soothing in a way that like other roguelikes are not. Like FTL, by the time you get in, like if your run is going very well, it is like very stressful. You're like, I
Yeah.
can't fuck this up. Like I have to get there. Whereas this game, I'm just like, yeah, I'll do a couple runs of Into the Breach because like this game even does the super smart thing of basically letting you control how long your run is, because you can approach the final island after just beating 2 islands, which maybe takes 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Or you can play through all 4 to sort of further level up your mechs, but then they also very smartly like scale the difficulty of that final island, meaning if you go when there's only you've only beaten 2 islands, you'll encounter less resistance than if you go after fighting 4 islands.
So
But
is
you
the
might not have those tactical options available to like, like those random weapon pickups that you get along the way. Like, oh, now my guy who could only move like 3 spaces, I can like jump halfway across the map and push enemies out, and like those extra strategic options, or just like upgrading your max health or doing more damage. You're sacrificing those upgrades for a potentially easier fight, maybe.
Potentially.
But yeah, I was listening to a an interview that one of the 2 developers for this game did, and he was saying that like, when they were developing this game, they did start with a very much kind of FTL style mindset of like, we'll have like an FTL amount of like story in it, we'll have like an FTL amount of like this, that, and the other thing. And I think they were coming to the conclusion of like, well, this is really just kind of getting in the way of the puzzle battling, which is like, kind of like the core part of the game. And I seem to recall the developer Justin Ma saying that like they had like all that stuff in it, and they might have cut out like 80% of it to get what we
Wow.
have now.
Mm.
And I was thinking like, wow, that sounds like a lot. And I think the end product is very good. But I do have a note in my Google Doc here of like, there's no like brain bug. There's no like big cathartic like, we beat this, we've like solved this problem of the timelines, and I feel like that might be okay, because like you were saying, it has this very like, this game has a very melancholic soundtrack to it. It has a very kind of like, not hopeless, but like the fight will go on as long as it needs to kind of mindset. And I feel like that kind of plays into like the aspect that there is no big bad brain bug. There is no big fight that you have, or like the singular entity, like we beat this guy, we win for all timelines. It's more of just like, all right, we've won on this time, and then all right, see ya friends, we're going to a different timeline, hope you win there.
Well, there's a little more to actually that little end bit. There's a little snippet of dialogue. I think the first time you beat the lava island and quote win the timeline, some pilot says like, the more timeline, something to the effect of, the more timelines we are victorious in, the more pilots we can send to those timelines. And it kind of, that suggested to me like, oh cool, after I beat it 5, 6, 7, 8 times, I will then have some opportunity to fight a big bad. And I don't know. I think it is an issue. It's not such a huge issue that, that
I
the
think
game needs to that no one needs to feel bad about it, but I as a player feel kind of bad about it.
I feel like they could have actually, less is more, but I think actually less would have been more, even less. Like they cut out 80%, they should have cut out 90%. I don't think that you need the timeline stuff at all. Like I think it's just as well. First of all, I hate time travel in all mediums, so that's a point off the game right off the bat.
Wait, why?
But because it's always time paradoxes, and you get into this kind of stuff. Like, well, why did they go back in time here and not here? Like,
Yeah, but
why don't you? When do you ever beat it? It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Just imagine Primer, but
I think that you
Pacific
could have
Rim.
had.
That's
the
that's not my issue. To be clear, but I get what you're saying. The time shenanigans.
Starship Troopers 10.
I don't think it adds anything. I think that you could just be like, yeah, you get one weird special pilot and go beat the thing, and then you beat the game, and you're like, good job, you beat them.
Yes, but
and
this
save
is
the Earth.
This is the Colin. I was under the impression that you liked Hades because it marries the roguelike replayability, run-based gameplay with story, and that's exactly what this time travel explanation does.
No, but it has no story.
Right. Yeah. Just adding the time travel, I don't think makes the narrative more interesting.
There is
Like,
no narrative. I think that they
Maybe,
should have just embraced
perhaps,
the fact that this is a chess puzzle game, and it's a very good chess puzzle game, if that's your
sure.
thing.
Maybe
So something
narrative isn't
like-
the right word for me to say. It's an explanation for the roguelike respawn run-based mechanic.
Sure, but
If I
that's
could have
just
turned off the narrative of this game and the CEOs talking to me at all, I would have.
Really?
I agree with that, 100%.
Really, I
Actually,
feel like it has
the
like a
CEO
fun tone to it, and like the little snippets of dialogue are kind of neat, and like each island, the CEOs have a different like personality.
You see it 1,000 times. You see it. That as soon as you click on the island, you're just like, okay, I don't care. Oh, who the fuck are you? I don't know. Just let me. I know you've got some interesting things to kill here. Let me just go
Well,
kill them.
it's very important. They are a disembodied AI robot head that is floating in a Zordon-style containment field, and all of their robot buddies are going bananas on this ice continent, and you have to kill the monsters while also trying to avoid killing their sentient buddies.
Well, I mean, perhaps we are mixing up, perhaps we are construing story with flavor. I think the different, the flavor is good, and I think the flavor is welcome. And if we just got rid of those CEOs and their different like tones of voice, like the one lady from like the desert planet, she's like super pessimistic and all the time. That's fun. The Zordoz lady, she has some fun lines about how all sentient life is important, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's I think it's perfectly
I
fine.
mean,
we don't have to get rid of all the story.
Take
Take
Let's
that,
leave
you
a little bit of
burrowing
that flavor.
SOB.
I'm kind of with Will, just in the sense that I think that once you've played this game, like, because this game very much encourages you to do a bunch of runs, because really what the game is here is trying to accomplish achievements with each squad. Each squad has 3 achievements that are unique to that squad, as well as beating the game with 2, 3, or 4 islands with that squad. And for each one of those achievements that you get, similar to FTL, you get money, which then you can unlock new squads with, which totally changes the gameplay. And so a lot of times, like in terms of having a plan, I feel like I usually don't need a plan to beat the game, but often I will need a plan to accomplish some of those achievements, because they're like set 8 tiles on fire in one level. And it's like, okay, I got to get a bunch of fire stuff. Or like I am deliberately like, sorry, civilians, like I am letting civilians die in order to like accomplish more of these goals. And like similar to Balatro, because that's a game fresh on my mind. Like Balatro was the game that like so much just kind of laid bare like the mechanics. It just had the thinnest veneer of like, hey, there's graphics here. Hey, there's like cards that you know how this, but really it's just like a string of math. And this game is just like a string of grids, and then you make the arrows point different ways, but it's like super satisfying. Like there's very few things that I enjoy more than being able to turn an enemy around and have it kill a different enemy. It's just so satisfying.
Indeed, and that has to do with sort of this reactive turn-based gameplay where you can sort of create, through the mechanics, you can create these sort of chain reactions that are very satisfying when you get a monster to kill itself, or a monster to kill another monster.
Push an enemy back, and then like it will attack a different enemy, and then it will block a vet coming up from the ground, which is it's just like this game just has so many mechanics that are integrated so smartly. Like the idea of you can stand on one of these emergence holes and like prevent an enemy from spawning for a turn. However, like you will take a damage, and then if you move off that hole, it will spawn again next turn, and you can get like more flooded with enemies on a turn where you might not be prepared. And so I just feel like with strategy games, it's such a hard balance for them to have enough mechanics that you feel like you're using every tool at your disposal, but not have so much mechanics that you're just like, yeah, screw it, like whatever, I'm not even going to engage with some of these. And like I feel like I've pretty much engaged one way or another with every mechanic in this game, and they are all useful. Like you can like break an acid vat and have enemies step on it, and it doubles the damage they take, and that can be really helpful. Or like Colin was saying, you can throw enemies into pits, like you could crack the floor open. I hadn't played this game in in quite a long time, and I had forgotten that they had added like additional free content to it the way that they did for FTL. And I do think that some of that advanced content like sometimes gets a little too complex in the way some of it works. Like your brain gets a little melted.
It's like
But
adding a new chess piece to the board, and you're like, oh, now I have to know, or you have to keep, and it's only like one new piece, but it's like, oh, I have to remember what the elephant on the board does.
right, like I was
And
not crazy about the idea of like you have to like kill an enemy to crack spaces on the board near it, and then you have to hit those spaces with another attack to like destroy the spaces, and then you can throw enemies into them. Like, okay, that seems like a little too much going on.
Oh no, I loved that one.
Okay, see,
Because-
so there's yeah,
Because you
something for
you
everyone.
hit the thing first, and then you get the thing next to it, and then you just get the one hit off, and the thing that's already there just drops down.
Oh, you're painting a vivid word picture there,
The
Colin.
thing, the
you hit
thing.
the thing.
thing
Oh,
just
yeah.
drops down.
Yeah, the thing just
With the
drops down.
stuff.
All the listeners know exactly what you're talking about.
I hear you. Are we talking about the ice? I don't. And there's all
No,
these
we're
different,
talking
like,
about the
settings
thing,
of-
Andrew.
Oh,
the thing.
pardon me.
The
Seismic
thing.
punch.
I
Seismic
don't.
punch. You
I
kill
think
an
the
enemy,
thing-
and then it cracks the land around them, and then if there's another damage that's done on that tile, the land cracks into an empty bottomless pit.
I see.
And then the bad guy that's standing on top of that empty pit falls into the abyss.
This
Yeah.
isn't a terrain feature. This is linked to a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
It's one of the squads. One of the squads is I think
Oh,
they're
I
the
see.
Cataclysm mechs or something are built
Hmm.
around sort of
Metal.
destroying.
So with regards to items and things, we were discussing it a little bit earlier. I have 17 hours in this game. I've beat it on easy. I've beat it on normal, and I so rarely get to experiment with any of the items that I get because I never have enough reactor stuff.
Yeah,
enough
that's
reactor
fair.
energy, and I feel like the game is a little stingy in that regard.
because with
And
FTL, like you were getting a lot of those, and you were like, okay, I have like a whole bunch of the, and it like from the visual aspect looks almost identical to the system from FTL, which is fine. Like I think that's an okay system, and it lets you know that you are playing a subset game, a game of quality. But yeah, like in FTL, you're getting a whole bunch of these little energy pills, and you're like, I'd like to put 3 energy pills over to the weapons, and actually, no, I'd like to redirect 2 of those energy pills up to the engine. And it's a very similar system here, but I get what you're saying. We're like, it feels like you have maybe half as many energy pills to play with.
Well, I think part of that is because they give you so many slots on your default mech to fill up, and like they get pretty good. Like I said, like you don't need additional weapons to do well in this game because usually each of the default weapons you could throw like 3 energy cores on them, and it will add additional damage, or it will allow you to like have your buildings not be immune to this damage. And so you kind of just want to keep buying cores to like pump up what you already have, as opposed to spending money to buy weapons and then spending cores and then buying cores to put on those weapons. It's easier to just cut out the middleman. The only things I buy consistently are the weapons that allow you to like deploy little tanks, because like I feel like the most valuable thing you can have in this is like additional characters and actions.
Yeah, action economy is
Sure.
action economy is amazing.
Because any time you can sort of handle 2 enemies with one attack, you're doing well. And tanks are also very nice because since they are unpiloted, they are like totally disposable. And so like you're just like, I am going to use this tank to just like, bodyguard a building here. And on the last turn of this round.
I mean,
Yeah,
like,
here's like
freezing is also S tier. I mean, with the little tanks, if I recall, I played like probably another 40 hours like 2 months ago, and so I'm like, I don't have it all quite as fresh in my mind, but I remember thinking, oh my god, freezing shit, holy Christ.
Yeah, and that's just another example of things working in a very intuitive way. Like you can freeze anything. Like you can freeze buildings, you can freeze yourself, you can freeze enemies, and like when something takes damage, like the shield, that the ice melts on it. And again, it's just another example of this game feeling very fair. Like I never feel like, often in roguelikes, I feel like I'm gonna try this just so I know how it will work in a future run. and then sometimes it just doesn't work. And I'm like, oh, I guess now at least I know that it doesn't work. I don't think that has really ever happened in the many hours that I have played this game where I like try something and then I'm like, oh, that didn't work the way I thought it would. It almost always works the way I think it will.
That's been my experience as well. There's one or two times where, um, I, yeah, only a handful of times where I've genuinely felt like, oh, well, that wasn't communicated properly, harumph. I feel like the little hover over, you can look at what order in which actions are going to take place. And I
Yeah.
feel like that system is a little difficult to follow. And there were a few times where it's like, oh, I thought X was going to happen before Y, and that's not the case. But
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to
agree.
keep track of the fact
99% of
that
the
one
time.
comes before two. And
Well, I'll have you know there was a lot happening on the screen,
Yeah.
and it was a little unclear in the UI. Like, okay, how much damage is this going to be, and what is being damaged? Because
that's
in
true.
the spaces of red and
sometimes gets overfilled, and some of the newer enemies that newer enemies, aka in the advanced content that came out 2 years ago, they'll like have a thing where they're like,
was it
attack
2 years
one...
ago or 1 year?
I think it's two. I think it came out in 22, where they're
Gotcha.
like, they attack one way and then they bounce the other way. So there's arrows pointing both directions. It's kind of hard to tell which direction means what.
But that's the thing, is that you can just like, for all the skills, and this is what I really love about it, because it does get sometimes confusing, especially you get a new squad that you're playing. You're like, oh, what does this do? You just mouse over like the ability and you get like a little demonstration of exactly how that thing works. And then if you level it up, you don't get the same like animation. It actually, oh, you got one more range.
Yeah,
it
that's another
shows you
animation.
doing one more range. And so it's like, that was such a really good feature to have, and especially in an animated fashion and not like a wall of text or like a simple image. So yeah, I like
It's
that a lot.
pretty elegant,
And
it's an elegant
perfectly,
game.
It's perfectly integrated into the game too. Like you don't even have to go to the in-game wiki because it's just
Yeah.
like hover over it. It just shows you, and you hover over the enemies, and it shows you how their attacks work. And
Yeah,
you can
that's
usually
a good
figure out
point,
how.
Colin. Like usually when I think of like a sort of major mechanic in roguelikes, it's like spend a long time looking at wiki to know like what is out there and how everything works.
Yeah,
And
either
I
the
don't
in-game wiki or some, random wiki on the internet with 1,000 ads on the sides.
right, like this game has no sort of like collection, like sort of weapon unlockable list or something that you do with that. That's just not a big part of the game. So it's like I always kind of forget that this game even really qualifies as a roguelike, because it's just that doesn't feel like that much of its design philosophy.
As far as but back to the items for a moment. And with regards to the greater conversation about roguelites in general, roguelikes and lights, it is what I'm looking for in a roguelike experience is I want the runs to randomly have items or some other, major, random factor, and I want to be excited by those items. And I did not feel excitement almost ever when getting items, except for I was delighted a few days ago to find out, hey, if you perfect an island, if you get all the objectives and you get all the bonus objectives, pardon me, if you protect the grid and you get all the bonus,
you don't need to
objectives.
protect the grid. You just have to get all the objectives.
Oh, it's just the objectives. Excuse
very
me.
much part of the strategy is you're like, well, I guess the 800, the 200 people in that building are dead because I want to just, not kill this volatile mech. So I'm just going to let it kill the people.
Yeah, we got to make sure this, milk delivery gets to the other side
exactly.
of the screen.
The train's
more
got to get
important.
there on time.
But yeah, so when you do that, you do all the optional objectives, you get a little gift, a little extra item, and that I did find exciting because it was more of a. I think part of the reason I was excited by that particular item drop is that it's done in a more familiar roguelike loot way, where it's like, here are 3 options, they're all pretty good. And that's when you get to make an interesting decision. And again, they're generally exciting. So I mean,
well, yeah,
this isn't a huge, negative per se, but
I think you're totally
a mecha game.
I think you're totally right, Andrew. Like when I think of games that I've come on and talked with you guys about before, like in a game we both really like, we Enter the Gungeon, which is like totally built around like, look, there's a giant black chest. I'm going to open it and get some nuts item. Like here, the items, most of the items you can get are not, they're not better than your starting items. They just give you another, another potential piece of your arsenal, or like another
And
option to go along
aren't
with.
most of the items that you can get just the starting items of other mechs?
Not all of them,
But not all of them, but most
Many
of
of
them.
them.
Many
Yeah.
of them.
Are we sure it's
Well,
not
'cause
all? I'm
I
under the
have no
impression that
idea.
it's all. I have like all of the squads unlocked
Okay.
at this point, but I haven't so I haven't like actually diligently gone through and
Sure.
verified this, but it just seems like, oh yeah, I had this before.
Well,
and that
I
was
think,
this-
yeah, they probably are all there, but there is also probably, I think there are some more that only appear in the shops. Like, I don't think any of the mechs start with the ability to drop tanks, for example.
Isn't there one that
There,
focuses
there,
on
there may be. I mean, this game has a lot of mech squads, and I don't think I've unlocked them all because the last squad cost like 25
Yeah,
coins.
well,
Yeah,
that's the one.
about
That's the
that
one I'm not. I haven't
25.
got yet.
Yeah.
I was hoping someone could spoil it for me.
Oh,
Tell me
Okay,
what
no,
that
it
is.
Nobody
remains a
knows?
mystery.
All right, well, I'm
Oh,
gonna Google it
gosh.
right now.
Please.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
Spoiler warning, folks.
Yeah, I think there's there's at least 10 squads, and like each one of them is going to have 3 or 4 different items per squad.
And as you were saying earlier, great variety. It really takes the what is a fairly verbose rule set and like does a lot of interesting, cool stuff with it. And I will agree that like even though there isn't like a greater story reason or a greater like boss fight reason to keep playing the game is so fun and the squads are so fun to play with that it warrants replaying the game. So I mean, lucky for this game, it's so fun.
Well, I mean, I
don't
think-
know if all games would be able to achieve
No.
this.
And I think that was the insight of the designers, just being like, we need to keep stripping this back and keep stripping this back because, yeah, they just came up with a very satisfying game to play. And I feel like your criticisms, Andrew, I like totally agree with it in the sense that like there is not really much narrative thrust to it. There's no big boss yet. There's no items that make you super excited, but like that's not what this game is about. Like I think that these guys clearly had an idea of like, we are going to make a very stripped down sort of tactics game with like consistent, easy to grasp rules. And they just executed that perfectly. And so it's like, if you want these sort of giant loot shooters or like, where you can make these sort of super nuts OP builds, there's plenty of other roguelike games that do that. And this is
That's
just not
true.
one of them.
And that was actually a point that I brought up a while back on an episode where it's like, well, there's other games that do that. So you are correct. You come to Enter the Breach for a sort of tighter, more controlled, I don't know, like implies like it's restricted, but like a more
I think controlled is a
predictable.
fine word. I mean, this game, I don't know, I just
Playbook.
very much like it to me, like you mentally, even though this is like a mech game, nothing strikes me as being big or impressive in its like there's no grandeur to the way this game looks. Like to me, it just very much looks like somebody set a row of hex tiles of like 8x8 on the counter in front of me and put little miniatures on there. So
are we back to talking about hero clicks?
no, we're talking
Or
about
battle
miniatures.
that's
just
tech.
very much yeah. battle tech.
Real quick, we got to go over to our wiki update corner. Will, what's the word on the final unlock?
Okay, so spoiler alerts. Whoa, my God, for whoever. We always spoil everything on this. So the secret squad is
Giant spiders from FTL.
No,
The
no,
Wild
no.
Wild West.
It's essentially you're playing as a cyborg version of 3 enemy units.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
They are apparently utter shit, and everyone hates them. The Techno Beetle, Techno Hornet, and Techno Scarab, and basically you get the starting weapons, and their thing is that they're trash. Basically, that's their thing, and like you can't if you want other weapons, it costs an additional energy because of the technology differences.
Well, come on.
And the pilots don't die, but you can't swap them out, and they just lose experience if they take damage. So it's like, yeah, it's just not a very good one, and everyone's saying it's the worst, and it should have stayed a secret. I think
Interesting.
Should have stayed a secret.
That feels kind of dirty because just for context, like most of the squads you unlock cost like 4 coins to unlock,
right?
And the secret squad costs 25, and it's
Thank
just
goodness.
sitting there taunting you, being like, "Ooh, bet you this is going to be some super nuts, powerful squad." Like you could form these guys together and make an Omega Zord, and it's like, no, it's just
that would've been
some
something.
garbage.
That
It
would be
would-
awesome. Just there's
Okay.
a squad that's just one mech.
Yeah.
It
No,
would
I
be
want it to
nice.
transform. I want it to
mechanic.
like be like Power Ranger style, like all uniting together, all like that would like a Tyrannosaurus or whatever.
I mean, that should have been the secret mech squad, because that would actually be pretty awesome, of something where they all have the ability to like align into one mech that gets like 3 moves in a turn or something.
I feel like there's
Dude.
a
Wait,
bit
hold
of
on,
a
hold on one sec. Andrew, there are secret pilots that you can get that are the people from FTL.
Oh,
You can
really?
get a Rockman,
Thank goodness.
Zoltan, and Mantis.
That's outstanding.
I feel like there was a missed opportunity for like your like a narrative catharsis where you are beating all of the different mech squads, you're grinding up that currency. Aha, unlock the secret squad. Wait, the secret squad are actually the bugs the whole time, and then using the bugs to fight the bugs, that being the way to like close the loop or something. Like some kind of I used the stones
I'm
to
with
destroy
you.
the stones bit, but I don't know.
Do you
I'm
guys
with you.
think, like, quick poll of people on this podcast who have played a lot of roguelike games, do you guys think that roguelike games should have like an end? Like Spelunky is a game that I played a ton, and like Spelunky has a secret entrance where you can go to hell and then like beat the quote unquote final boss, and then it's like, great, you have now beaten the game, and like this game doesn't really have that, I guess. I'm just curious if you think there should be a thing where you're like, you have accomplished the final challenge, or it's just like up the difficulty.
Right. Okay. Quick poll. I say yes.
Yes.
I don't know.
No.
I feel like I think I'm with Will in that I don't think it needs that. I think there's
Well, I
plenty
mean,
of games
head
that
no.
like
I would prefer it, I guess, is my more nuanced answer.
'Cause,
Because
like-
for me, it helps with the motivation, and I think it
but you do it
informs all
once.
of those replays.
But you do it once. That's the thing, is like it's exciting the first time. And the whole thing about this style of game is that like eventually that's supposed to be like something that you just like you learn and you get good at, and like just to killing the heart and slay the spire. Yep, that is a boss, but it's like also it's something that like you just come back and do again and again and again. And so I don't know. I felt like that's. I don't know. Does that put me in the camp of wanting the boss? I don't feel like there has to be this big epic turn like thing that's just like the thing to end all things, because in that you return back to the beginning again.
Okay, let me qualify then. I don't think that there necessarily has to be like a super final secret boss, but I do think that there needs to be more than one level of completion. So like
There you go.
so you in Slay the Spire, you have you beat the game the normal way, and it's like, well, they're now here, you've unlocked the thing, you can do the even better way.
Now, is
And
that
then you can go
different, the
even
thing that
further.
you use to crack the ground and Into the Breach? Is that a different thing you unlock in Slay the Spire?
It is, in fact.
Okay.
It's gems or something. But yeah, like so in this game, it seems to me like you could beat it on your first run, and you have now seen the entire game.
Well, you have not, because you have not unlocked all of the other squads.
But you have seen the entire content of the game
Yes,
that you could play.
yes.
You can, like, you play it the first time, you've seen all 4 of the possible islands, you've seen the one exact ending scenario, and you've potentially seen most of or all of the bugs.
Yeah. But
I think
again,
that there
it's like,
should be, I think that there could be slightly more randomness in the islands, and I think that there could be, maybe even in the harder difficulty modes, there just is more content afterwards.
But I feel like this game is so, I don't know. And I guess, again, this probably just comes from being a board game guy, but I feel like this just so clicks into the same thing I want from board game. It's like, you don't play a game of chess with someone and beat them. You're like, well, I've seen all of what chess has to offer. Like, I'm done with this. It's like, it's about exploring the mechanics. And it's
But
about,
you do that in a board game if you're playing a solo game where that's all there is.
I have the
chess
solution
has
to
another
this.
person that you're playing against. This
I have
doesn't
the,
have that.
but I
the
have
solution
played solo
here.
board games, and you don't just play them once.
Yeah,
You like, okay, I'm going to try and beat my score. Scott has the solution.
Yes, the solution here, because this is a puzzle game at heart, and like effectively like a chess variant if you squint your eyes hard enough. The Lee Chess website has some very interesting things, and I'm like, but is this what like an Into the Breach 2 would need? So the Lee Chess website has like these like little chess tactic like bite-sized puzzles, like the puzzle of the day, puzzle du jour. And I feel like Into the Breach would be well suited for like a daily mode of just like, hey, here's like the puzzle of the day.
Sure.
Like this, it looks really hard. Maybe you only have like one energy bar left or something. How do you go about solving it? And I think there's like that one aspect, but Leech Chess also has things like Puzzle Streak and Puzzle Storm, which are like, okay, you've completed that puzzle. Here's another one. How far can you keep that streak going? And each puzzle is like, I mean, there's like, zillions of combinations that you could encounter in this game between like the random mechs, the random pilots, the random environments, and then the random bug setups. Well, not random, but like the different variations feel potentially bottomless. And to like chain those together in like a sequence of puzzles to be like, okay, I've beat this puzzle. Oh, like some kind of time warp thing happens and I've been warped into another puzzle. And now I have to solve this one. You got to keep that streak going, man. You got to keep those numbers going up. I feel like that's like something that could keep me coming back even after I've already beaten the quote main story of the game, to keep that kind of like Slay the Spire style of, oh, but this time I want to try like to see how far I can go before I lose.
Yeah, I guess I feel like that this game, I have put quite a few hours of this game. I realize I have sort of equally split time in this game between my PC and my Switch, which is not a good way to play games like this because I have sort of halfway unlocked content in both of them. But like the fun, exciting part of this game is unlocking new squads. And like by the time you have unlocked the new squads, you have put like probably 40 hours into this game, which is like plenty of time for what, a $15 game
Right.
at this point. So I don't know. It's like this is very much like I would prefer a game that knows what it is doing and does it very well, as opposed to a game that's trying to do a little bit of everything. And like that's what I respect so much about this game.
This game definitely knows what it's doing. The developers definitely know what they're doing. It's a very good game. It's a great game, dare I say. One more bit of pushback on this point about there being final bosses needed or preferred or what have you. What if, perhaps not a perfect example, but let's imagine we lived in a horrible alternate timeline wherein Enter the Gungeon had no like bullet component. It's like you killed the dragon and that was the last boss. I feel like it would be a lesser game. But it would still be, I think, a pretty long game and a fairly complete experience, but it would be, I think, lesser.
That's true, but I think it would only be lesser because you and I both really are into that game to like it's like though that sort of level of content only appeals to people who've like, all right, you have put, 40 hours in it. I don't think it would be that much lesser if there was essentially just a difficulty toggle. Like, because it was like Will said, like very much when I finally like beat the rat or beat the advanced dragon or whatever, I was like, that was really hard and like pretty annoying. I am not going to do that again. I just can now cross it off of the list. It was like by adding those additional challenges, I was more sort of irritated trying to accomplish them than having fun just engaging with the game. The only thing I really want in a game is a reason to keep playing it. And I guess
this is true.
I would prefer the Into the Breach setup of not that hard, like nothing is outrageously hard of a goal, but like each time you accomplish something, you unlock a new squad, as opposed to like setting some kind of like super hard goal, like beat the game on unfair, and that's the only way you can unlock a new thing, because that's when it gets annoying. It's like I was talking to Will about Balatro right before we started. It's like at some point you reach like these accomplishments where it's like win a gold stake run with every Joker, and it's like, am I really going to keep playing the game to try and achieve that goal? Because that just like maybe you like the game enough to go for it, but like at some point my enjoyment of the game versus the level of frustration I'm willing to put up with kind of like teeters one way or another. And I think Into the Breach never reaches that point. It might reach that point now that I know how shitty the secret squad is, and I'm probably not going to try and get 25 coins to unlock
What
it.
a shame. Yeah, how hard would it have been? Like I feel like the easy route is just make the final unlock, like make them really good, make them the cyborg bugs, but just make them kick ass.
What's interesting to me here is that when I was doing some stats pulling, I was shocked to see Into the Breach like quote so far down the popularity list. I was like, this is going to be like an easy like top 15 because it's made by the guys who made FTL, which is cranks in at number 17 at 69,000-ish something reviews. But Into the Breach, I don't know if this is just like sequelitis or something, and people are just like, ah, yeah, we've seen the FTL guys game. But like that one's like FTL is like 4 times as popular as Into the Breach.
Into the Breach.
Is that like a symptom of just Into the Breach being like around longer, or is like because they're like they
I
have
think
very
it may
similar.
be you're only pulling stats from PC, right?
This is just Steam, but I imagine
Right.
it's probably emblematic of the
Like,
rest of the.
I don't think so, because I don't even think FTL is on Switch. Like
That's
this
a fair
game,
point.
this game plays quite competently, like on any console, on any platform. Like
Steam
playing
Deck also,
FTL
yeah.
on a small phone or on a PS5 is no funzos. You really need mouse and keyboard to play FTL. And so like I think that this game is probably more popular than just the Steam stats would imply. Um, but I don't know. I think that this game probably suffers, but I guess this is true of FTL. Like it doesn't look that interesting. Like you just see a screenshot of it and you're like, yeah, I got it. Like why am I excited to play this game about like moving units around on a grid? I can do that in Fire Emblem and have like hot anime characters.
Well,
dating
because
each
you
other,
see, like
too.
the Black Bishop is going to take knight G6, and then the pawn is going to end passant at the same time, and then the other guy's going to castle, and you have all these grid lines drawn on the chessboard, and you're like, oh my God, what is this insane puzzle before me? I must unpuzzle it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that it speaks to like what I don't know. I think it speaks to kind of what Andrew was saying is there's no like screenshot of this game that has like some giant super cool weapon or like you can't watch if you watch somebody like play FTL stream FTL or something, it can be like exciting because they have this sort of weird crazy build or like they just pull off this thing to defeat the flagship. Here, if you watch someone stream Into the Breach, it's mostly
them
them
scratching their head.
quietly thinking and like just the
I
screen
want to watch
sitting
the
there,
stream
so.
of this chess puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there are lots of chess streamers, lots of successful chess streamers.
King's
but
Crusher, big fan of the podcast, I will say, and I'm sure Magnus Carlsen is listening right now, and he's like, you know what, all these chess games that these guys talk about are sublime. But yeah, like I feel like previous episode that we talked about, like the last spell has a lot of visual stuff going on with like fireballs and like encroaching enemy hordes, and when you use an ability there's like a big explosion, and it's very very visually interesting to look at, and here like Into the Breach, it is visually like basically anytime that we talk about a traditional roguelike game, we're just like, how come this doesn't have graphics like Into the Breach? I feel like that's kind of
we
like
said that about Cogmind in particular. That was the big thing. I said it'd be Cogmind good game if Into the Breach graphics.
Well, yeah, because Cogmind, the way it looks, like I think that Cogmind looks like shit, but like my main problem is that the way it looks sort of becomes an impediment to me understanding how the game works. Like I think that Into the Breach is not technically an amazing looking game, but like it is graphically very, very clean, and I can sort of see how everything is going to work.
I personally would go so far as to say that it is a good-looking game. I think that it's simple, but it's elegant, and like just the character portraits, for example, very simple, but like just enough detail to like get across some character. The only animation that they have for the characters is them like blinking, and it's like perfect. That's all I need. It's great. They each have like a certain kind of look to them and a feel to them, and
or if your mech is like down to 1 health, it's like blinking red in the cockpit, and they're like,
love it.
Like
all sorts of great anime shit going on in this game. It's outstanding, and just the animation of, I was really struck when I first started playing the game. The animation of a mountain crumbling, I thought was pretty cool, and the buildings crumbling, like it does. I mean, after you're jaded and you're 50 hours into the game and you're just playing purely for the mechanics, obviously you're immune to this. But when you first start the game does a pretty good job between graphics and sound and the actual like numbers on screen of making you feel bad when a building gets destroyed, especially when a building gets destroyed unnecessarily. Like, oh no, there were however many, you know, of Earth's citizens in there, et cetera, et cetera. And the way in which your mechs drop in, the menu screen, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a very nice presentation, and is there's a reason that we point to it and go, well, if only this game had Into the Breach's graphics.
I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't talk about two other primary game mechanic or like components, I should say. One is a time for a run, and the other is the overworld and how those differ, and pros and cons of maybe these things. And I'll just say, for like time for a run, if we're gonna put onto the negative side, I think I might put it into that category, simply because I mean oftentimes I haven't actually finished a run like in this week, but I recall these getting quite long if you want to do like all the islands. And I know you can choose, but a lot of the achievements require you to do like more islands. And so I don't know. Do you guys feel like it's maybe gets too long, too short, or you feel like this structure is okay?
It feels about right to me. I know that, Will, like you are like the poster child for like sitting there scratching your beard for like 2 hours to be like, is this the most optimal move?
When this game very much has a lot of that.
Oh yeah. But I was just looking at the last run that I did. I did a 2-island hard mode run, and I was doing a pretty fair amount of beard scratching the whole time. And like that took me like an hour and 20 minutes to get to the last turn of the last island, or the boss fight phase after 2 islands, hour and 20 minutes. And that felt about right for how much thinking I was doing in it.
But that's only 2 islands, right? If you did all of them, I mean, we're talking. I
run.
remember like sometimes getting into like 3 hours and being like, wow, that achievement, like I don't even want to try and do like they're all worth the same, if I recall. And like,
yes,
I would just get like whatever the short one is, the thing that just makes me like I can just get in and get out and not even finish the run, really, just like abandon the timeline.
I was watching a streamer just before this doing a hard mode 4-island Rift Walkers run, and looked like a StarCraft RTS match. He was just like click 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 click, and then like it was just on a totally different level of like
speed
puzzle
chess.
completion.
He was doing speed chess.
It might be a little long, but I think we've kind of already determined that this is not a traditional roguelike. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be beholden to the perfect runtime necessarily.
They all need to be
but you have to do so many
minutes,
runs.
40 minutes and 1 hour. I'll give up to an hour and 20 minutes if it has that extra, like, you know, the STS getting to the heart, the final component. But like
I think you could do that on easy or normal and still have like a fun time. I don't think there's any additional benefit to playing this game on hard other than just like getting like the gold badge for that squad.
Yeah, has anyone beat the game on unfair here?
I haven't beaten the game on hard.
I think I can pull it up here, but I'm pretty sure I beat it on like all the different levels, because I'm like, well, that's the last challenge, right? The final frontier. And so
I didn't like I said, the new content got added like 2 years ago, and I think I played this game like right when it came out. So I didn't even realize that they had added an additional difficulty mode, because I don't think unfair came with it. I know that I had beaten it on hard, but yeah, it's very much, I mean, the heart too of strategy games is having the difficulty be right, because there's very few genre of games that is more boring if they are too easy than a strategy game, because you're just like, move piece here, destroy enemy, and then you're just like go go go, and it just feels like kind of a waste of time. Or conversely, there's few genres that are more demoralizing if they are too hard, and you're just like, I can't win, and I'm going to throw my hands up.
Would Into the Breach be better if instead of like the same 4 islands, it was like a random selection of 3 out of a pool of like 10 or 15?
I was thinking that.
I don't think you even need that many. I think it could be 4 out of 6, and even that would be better. And then there's 2 different scenarios at the end.
Or
Volcano Island or Ice Island or something.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, I like that. Or 3 out of 6, and then you can finish the map at either 2 or 3 islands played through, or maybe even 1. I don't know, but I don't know. It's not something that I've ever had a big problem with. I do think that one of the weird acknowledgments of like most of these roguelike games is, you know, they always have like a save and quit option, do you guys find that whenever you save and quit and then like come back later, you just always fail like right
Yeah,
away because you're like,
yeah.
Done. As soon as you save and quit, like, yeah, the game's over.
In,
'Cause,
in this case, no, because I was like stuck on one of these hard mode sections while playing on the bus, and I was like, man, I really can't figure out the solution to this. And then I saved and quit on the bus ride home, popped it back open on the Steam Deck. I'm like, of course, that's it. Like I just had to step away and like not think about it for, a whole work day. And then as soon as I popped it up, I'm like, I forgot about this ability. What if I put this here and this here? And then everything just kind of locked into place and it felt so satisfying. So I feel like in this case, like the save and quit thing, particularly for like this puzzle aspect, works pretty well.
Yeah, I generally, it is my experience that, yeah, I come back to the save and in a roguelite run and I do terrible. But that being said, Scott, you're hitting at the heart of this game. One of the finest elements of it is that satisfaction that you get when you put that plan into action and things go, which is similar to I spoke on this topic about Balatro, where it's like finding the solution to that puzzle feels great in this game.
Did we talk about who the best squad is?
Who is the best
and why
squad?
it is the Rusting Hulks?
Why
now,
is it the
remind
Rusting
us,
Hulks?
why is it the Rusting Hulks?
Because you have a jet and you have a spider mech that pushes people, and you have a mech that's just a big rocket.
I'm unconvinced that that wasn't very.
The jet is
can't even
pretty
fly
sick.
over buildings.
Well, because it's weaving in between them. It's getting your
Come
top
on.
gear, your top gear, your
the
Top
first-
Gun, like.
Sure. I personally like the Zenith team on account of them having an ode to Metal Gear as their main sort of star mech. And then also like you just have the silliest mech in my opinion, which is literally just like a Tonka truck. Like you just ram it into things and it deals damage to itself when you do that. And then it's all topped off with the Amerigos. You have a little science vessel just kind of floating around, giving buffs every once in a while, dealing 1 damage while also damaging itself. The Hulks are pretty cool. They have a great name, and their whole like sort of dust thing is good. I was actually going to ask this very question. What are y'all's favorite teams?
I can't really remember, to be honest. I mean, I know they all were like fun, and then like you get into them, and
all right, least favorite, is there one
I feel
that
like
you
the most
despise, Will?
the original, the ones you start with, I'm pretty sure that they were like the most I won't call them overpowered, but they were like one of the best ones.
Yeah,
the ones that take damage right when you do anything. Or they heal themselves when I don't remember their mechanic, but I remember that was like a pretty powerful one overall.
I mean, my favorite squad is the squad that I have not yet unlocked all the achievements on, because that is the one that I'm going to be
whichever one
playing
you're
as.
focused
And,
on, right?
Yeah, and very much I will not go back and like play a particular squad if I still have another one that I need to unlock. I do remember disliking the squad that had the whip mech, where you would have to chain a bunch together because it would hit your buildings, and like you would have to level it up to like make it not hit your buildings, and I just found it irritating. I think the squads that are the hardest to play are the ones where only one of the mechs sort of does a meaningful amount of damage.
I beat it with Steel Judoku, and I think they start with only one of them being able to do any real damage, but they're 100% just like moving, and they make it so that the enemies do more damage to themselves.
To each other. Yeah, that's cool.
And I found that to be actually a pretty fun squad to play. It was just like shoving them around the map and like flipping them over you and then pulling them and then having them kill each other, which felt great.
Have any of you guys played the game, or is it are you going to play it on the pod of Fights in Tight Spaces?
We did, yes.
Okay. What do you guys think of that game?
Well, it made quite the impression for Will, so much so that at one point he famously mixed it up with another game.
But
I
it
think
appears to be 16 out of 43.
Oh, okay. I
give it a
really
7.5.
I really liked that game, and that was very much though just like, hey, we're just gonna steal the mechanics from Into the Breach and sort of put it as Sheen, like kind of mix it with Slay the Spire. And I'm like, well, those are both great games. So you're probably going to come up with something good.
It's a fun game. It's would recommend.
Yeah. But again, that is very much a similar thing of like, really the mechanics, like they start you basically with everything that you need. You don't need as much of a plan to kind of get through it, and it becomes, yeah, what to me it is a much less stressful playthrough than I'm going to try and beat the rat in Gungeon or something.
And does Titan Fights, does that have a rewind mechanic also?
Yeah,
How does that handle
fights in tight spaces? I don't think there's any time travel explanation. That's the thing that's funny.
But is there a reset? Can you take back moves?
I believe there is,
yeah. Yeah,
there
but
is
that's
also.
what's so weird is like the designers of Into the Breach are like, we need to have like time travel fit into the story to explain why you can restart your moves. And it's like, guys, games have been doing that for like 30 years. You just restart. You just die and restart. They don't all have an explanation of
They
time
all
travel.
have time travel in them.
Yeah.
That's the
And
secret.
then-
Whenever Mario
but
falls
like,
in the pit,
I
that's time travel when he comes
Yeah,
out.
but then
I think it's
also
kinda
there's
neat.
gold coins that you use to unlock new squads. Space coins.
Yeah.
Like
the Vec have left their loose change around, and you
Yeah.
gotta dig through the earth. Anyway, I thought it was kind of fun having a protagonist that you're sort of Tom Cruising through the different days after tomorrow. Personally, but
I feel like an underrated aspect of those time traveler guys is inevitably, like, I feel like this happens like once every few runs for me. Like, I'll get to the final boss, and the time traveler guy that have like super leveled up, that I've like carried through like 2 or 3 different campaigns, I have to use him to sacrifice himself at the end level.
that's so
And-
awesome.
And it feels like such a storybook moment of like, he survived all these different timelines, and finally to win this one, he has to like give himself up to
And
for
it's
the
not
greater
even
good.
his timeline. They are sacrificing themselves to save people that not only they don't know, they had no opportunity of knowing. Oh, beautiful, molto bene.
Why would you do
I
that?
think you're
That's-
underrating the plot here.
What's the philosophy behind that? I mean, consider the infinite number of timelines out there. You'll never be able to like make any real
I wanted
difference.
to Why
not
talk
just
about
have a happy
this
life?
actually. The ethics of like forsaking a timeline, and the ethics of like, I found myself attacking buildings on purpose so that I could like restart. And I'm like, ooh, what are the moral implications of this in a
there's
the
a
universe?
restart button, don't you, Andrew? Like,
Oh yeah. Which I know this is just like, a cutesy, fun to have conversation. I
Well,
realize
yeah,
the,
but I
the,
guess it
the
is-
fact that the game developers did not waste a bunch of time with trying to overanalyze all these, all this baloney is, I think, probably for the best. But I think what we haven't talked about is our, I don't know about y'all, but I had to come face to face with my total disregard for the sanctity of artificial life. In a lot of my runs, if I didn't have a pilot in the vehicle, that thing's disposal. Well, I don't give a hoot. Like, even the named characters, they're robots. I'm like, they're the first one to go. I'm gonna use them to block the giant scorpion sting or
Archimedes,
whatever.
though, fucking 2 moves. You gotta keep Archimedes alive.
That's great, but I'm sorry, my boy Ralph, my main gal, what's her name? Vera. Oh man,
Is that the
Can't
pink
get
hair
enough of them.
mohawk?
Oh, I'm thinking of Kalima Vera, who is she's
Doesn't
like,
take any webbing or something.
yeah, she's immune to webbing. She
No,
can't
that's
get
the
locked
pink
down.
hair mohawk girl. S tier, one of the. I mean, the mohawk people
I
in
don't
general
know
are
if
really
I
all
unlocked
S
her.
tier.
But yeah, what do y'all anything about that? Did you find that you were more likely to sacrifice one mech or the other? I guess, or
Well,
was everyone
I
just
think-
making purely logical
I think
chess-based
that this
high ELO
game-
decisions?
This game very much encourages you to just make logical decisions. Like it, because there's a lot of situations where you're like, you don't prioritize. I mean, everything is a balance. You're going to get in situations where like a building is going to get hit, or like where your character is going to take damage. And so like there was a lot of times where I was just like, well, people in that building are going to die because I want to accomplish this mission and this goal. And so you don't.
And then critically, interestingly, the one bit of RNG in the game, sometimes the grid has enough defense and the building is saved.
stupid. Bad.
That is the most satisfying
That is a little
thing.
stupid. I don't like that as a game that is very light on RNG to kind of just throw that in as a mechanic.
But when it
'Cause-
works,
I'm
it's like,
conflicted,
ugh.
but yeah, when it's good, right?
Sure.
You know, but when it's bad, which is most of the time, yeah, I agree. I'm conflicted about it as well.
I feel like all these games are about taking a like any sort of game with randomness is about trying to build down to get rid of that randomness. This is like, you could never get it high enough that you're like, oh well, I just won't care about it getting hit. So it's only a blessing, but you're just like, oh right, huh.
Yeah, what's the highest you can get it?
Like 25%.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yikes.
Yeah.
And it takes a
So-
lot of investment to get there too, because you have to fully like power your grid and then keep dumping more into it for the hope that, I mean, like if at that point like you're
just-
gonna win.
It's
Like,
just there to like, oops, you have one extra reputation point left that you couldn't spend on anything else.
right.
Sure.
But that feels dumb.
Well, I mean, this game, lot to live up to. With FTL having won the Omega Bowl.
Yeah.
One step, two step. What is the name of this outfit again? Two-step
Subset.
development.
Subset.
Subset.
And Subset do it again. Are we? Maybe I'm rushing us along too much. Are we? Your rankings?
I mean, we're
think we're ready for ranking.
almost hour and a half in here. Yeah, we got to do these ratings done.
All right. Yeah. Can they reclaim their title?
No.
No. Hey,
I'll
rock and
start-
roll.
I'll
start it
Go ahead,
off.
please.
I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Versus FTL's 10.
Wow.
So you say, why is FTL so much more popular? I think it's because it's a better game, in my opinion. So I feel like there's a lot of this game that I like and some stuff that I don't like. But coming out right off the bat it's a chess puzzle game and it requires a lot of beard scratching, a lot of head scratching, and sometimes I'm just like staring at it and unlike a chess puzzle, it has not been vetted by a human, so there might just be no way out because I screwed myself on the last turn. And it's very I can't stop knowing. I'm just like, I just keep staring like there has to be a way out, and like 75% of the time there is, but that last 25% of the time I'm just staring at it, getting more and more frustrated before I give up. And I don't find that to be quite as fun as some of the other stuff where maybe just that veneer of randomness says, you can't you can't know if you were going to be able to do it or not. And then the knowledge that your game is going to be basically the same game each time. You got the same 4 islands and you have the same last thing. That really, I don't know, for some reason that rubs me the wrong way. I think that there should be at least a little bit of a variation in that. However, it is a very, very good tactical puzzle game. When it's at its best, it's really, really good. The time where you're staring at it for like 5 minutes trying to find the one set of moves that gets you through, and you find it, feels great. So 7.5, still absolutely recommend.
All right. Well, yeah. So I'm gonna be the inverse of Colin on this one with respect to FTL. Colin, you gave FTL a 10.
Yeah.
Big mistake. I gave FTL a 7.5. 7.5. This game, however, you gave a 7.5 here, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Oh, I thought you were going to give it a
better.
10, Will. I thought you were going to. I thought you
No,
were
no.
really going to be the inverse there.
Okay, yeah, well, not quite. Directionally inverse here. Yeah, 8.5. I can't do better than that just because the overworld is trash. I don't like the overworld. I think there's too much repetition. I think the idea, like the different squads, is interesting, but I kind of got burnt out. Like I went to the first 40 hours, left it alone for a couple of years, came back, played another 40 hours, unlocked everything, and then I was just like, man, what else can I play? And I'm just we got into some other game at the time, was I don't remember what it was, but it's I think Wildermyth or something. But like, it was easy for me to put this one down after I got to a point where I'm like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I am a chess puzzle extraordinaire, to be fair, and so chess puzzles in general appeal to me probably more than the average person. But that's gonna land us. I gave it an 8 initially. I just bumped it up to an 8.5 just because it is nice. It is real nice. Maybe it's just because I think it's because I saw Colin's score and I'm like,
I feel like if you put 80 hours into a game and then you're like, then it was easy to put down. You've still like the game's done pretty well for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, I'm 200 hours into Balatro.
Sure.
I don't even know how to pronounce the fucking game. It doesn't matter. I'm just I'm still having a good time.
Yeah.
Not like I'm having like, instead of the 10 out of 10 time now, I'm having like a 7 out of 10 time. But
Sure.
give me something better than 7 out of 10. I'll switch to that.
Andrew, you're up next.
I'm over here now. Y'all have me rethinking my scores, but I'm just gonna stick with change your mind, lose your mind, something. All right, so check it out. This is my this is my cruel Andrew thesis on this game, and basically it goes like this: the fact that there isn't like one super cool unlock at the very end that's worth all the extra effort. The fact that there isn't even a slightly longer final boss. I thought for sure there were going to be like 3 levels. 2, kind of weird. As we know, comedy comes in 3s. That applies to roguelike boss design as well. Age-old knowledge. But the lack of a boss is a big deal for me. However, we have discussed at length that what's probably more important than that final boss sense of achievement is the sense of wanting to play the dang game. And fortunately, this game is very fun to play. And it is an achievement of game design, the fact that there is no like overarching plot achievement, but that it's still fun to play, even without like that added motivation. The motivation is just experiencing the gameplay, which is great. And we also spent some time. So yeah, no boss, a big issue for me personally, but not the end of the world. And we've also spent a lot of time talking about how I feel like generally we've been kind of negative on the story. The setting and the flavor, I think, is very good. And I'm glad that they didn't strip away so much of the story that it started digging into that. And however, the game, like FTL, does allow you some opportunity to do some storytelling of your own, to create sort of a narrative. Now, it's not very interesting, it's not super deep, but there's something to that. And in my last my last run, I was trying very hard to beat the game on hard, and I was like power leveling the Vera pilot, and that led me to I forgot about the restart button, and I just started attacking buildings because I wanted to get a game over, and so I could restart. And I pulled her through a couple of timelines, so she was maxed out level. And then I found Ralph Carlson in one of the time pods, and it was just this fun situation where I had this pilot who's been through multiple timelines, and then I had this grizzled like Panzer like commander guy in Ralph Carlson who had been relegated to being put into the ramming speed vehicle that just like crashes into shit. I thought was so funny. And like the little snippets of dialogue from the people that you're saving, or like when the mechs first drop down and they talk, like I was enjoying, I was invested in the run and in the characters, as simple and sort of basic as the story presentation was. And anyway, I think it's a good game. I think it's a great game. It is my new number 6. And yeah, people should play it. The whole issue that I usually have with turn-based games being too slow and me being bored, not a problem. Pretty snappy game.
What does that mean? Your score doesn't.
All right, look, fellas.
What does any score mean, really?
So when this,
give me the 1 out of 10.
Give
me the 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. Well, I'm sorry. When I joined up, when I hitched my dinghy to this pirate ship, I was told that it was stack ranking. Is that the term? And so I tried to do that, and now we're almost a year in. And I don't know if there's any going back. I might need to. I could perhaps renovate my scores again.
Did we not? I thought we resolved this. Yeah, it looks like you got a score here.
We can change the scores again next week if that simplifies things.
It's an
unusual number, very precise, I must say. It's good that you were able to determine it was 7.85, not 7.84.
And
again,
I did
this
that
is
so that it would be my number 6.
I mean, I have mine. Technically, it's
So, yes,
7.50010. So that they're stacked ranked within the 7.5.
Between episodes, I leveraged the power of 3 data scientists and an astronomer, a data scientist, multi-classed astronomer, to try to fix my rankings. And unfortunately, they are still kind of janky, and perhaps there will be another iteration down the line. But the important part is it's my number 5, my number 6 game, my number 5+1 game.
What do you see what the Ultra 64 ranking system has wrought upon the universe?
Sure.
I'll go next. Into the Breach, I'm gonna give the same score as FTL. I went into this which is a
Ooh.
9.2 out of 10 on the very scientific, definitely won't change in the future scale. I went into this episode thinking, oh man, this is gonna be my new number one, isn't it? And I think it's kind of fallen a few spots because of that sort of longevity problem. But I think this game is, I think like for any game, like it's fine to like put it down and walk away from and never play again. Like that's totally like an acceptable thing. And I think if you play a game for like 50 or 80 hours and you're like, you know what, I've seen enough, that's, or like even 20 hours and you're like, I had fun and I don't think I need to play this game anymore. That's totally acceptable. 50 hours for me, I feel like I've kind of seen everything. But I've like this was one of like the most fun games I've had for that 50 hours. Like every time I've picked it up and played, it's been like a noodle scratcher, or if I said it's an easy mode, it's been just a very light appetizer of like getting my brain going for the day. It hits so many of those right notes of like lining up the enemies and then bam, you hit them with the laser beam and oh, and like you kill all of them at the same time. Just little moments like that that just feel so good when you get them to line up. I know that like puzzle games aren't for everybody, but I think if you are a puzzle head, like you have to play this game. It is so good with what it does, and it is just it's maybe too streamlined. I would maybe like a little bit more on the flavor train, just a little bit. But you know, like those really super bespoke, fancy meals that you see at like super high-end restaurants that's just like the huge plate and the like teeny tiny cube that's like $90, but it's like it has all the drizzles and stuff on it. You're like, this like there I want more food than this, right? And you take one bite and it's like the best bite of food that you've ever had. And you're like, no, actually I don't need more than this. This is perfect. That's kind of like Into the Breach for me. 9.2, yeah, that puts it pretty high up on my list. But Woody, you have some games on your list. Your number one on your list is Enter the Gungeon,
Yep.
followed by number two, Dead Cells,
Yep.
followed by number three, your worst game of all time on this podcast, FTL Faster and Light. Where among those does Into the Breach drop
Sure.
in?
I mean, just to repeat this, like Scott, when you guys were starting this podcast, Scott asked me like to send a list of games I'd be interested in, and I like only listed games that I like. So like all those games are great, and this game is also great. I'm with Will. I like this game more than Faster Than Light. I think that Faster Than Light is occasionally frustrating in a way that feels kind of unfair. Of like random shit happens, where, and I also, I don't know, I usually feel better playing this game. I put just as much hours into something like Balatro, but at some point I realized that just became like an addiction of hunting out the next sweet loot. You're like, I'm gonna get this rare Joker. I'm gonna get it. Whereas this game like always feels good. Like Scott said, it always feels like you're kind of scratching your noodle a little bit, and it's just enough to kind of stimulate the brain. So I still feel like I've just am a little more of a Twitch gamer. So I still like Gungeon and Dead Cells a little more.
Yeah, Woody, I knew I could
But
count on you.
yeah, but I like Into the Breach more than FTL. So it's Gungeon, Dead Cells, Into the Breach, and then FTL. All excellent games.
Where do you put Balatro? Every time.
Probably, boy, I don't know. I would need to let that sit. I don't really see myself. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Probably behind Into the Breach, as much as I hate to say it. Just I know. Just because like I said, at some point it feels like you kind of just run on autopilot in that game. You're like, I have kind of figured out the systems, and it's very satisfying to just continually do that. But this is a game where even if I feel like if I got very good at it, it would be pretty hard to run on autopilot because it does punish you for not paying attention.
Well, so if you, dear listener, are a big fan of Into the Breach, and you want more, you've put in that 80 hours of content, you're like, you know what? I've seen everything there is to see in Into the Breach, beaten it on unfair mode. I want some other games that are like that. We have a whole bunch of previous episodes in our back catalog that are up your alley, from Wildermyth to Invisible Ink to we talked about Fights in Tight Spaces a little
Fights
bit.
in Tight Spaces is very much like this game.
Yeah,
Like
which Woody, you will be excited to know that there is a game by the same people using the same engine with the same concept called Knights in Tight Spaces.
Ooh.
Coming out
K-N-I-T,
at some point.
or just N?
KN, meaning medieval style.
I am interested.
FTL, of course, The Last Spell ranked pretty highly on our list. And some games that we haven't talked about, which I think fit into this into the breachiverse of gameplay with very noodly puzzle head scratching games that involve like either like squad management or like manipulation of things. A game that no one's ever heard of. Mainframe Defenders is like what if Into the Breach but like NES style robots. Woody, I don't know if you've heard of Shogun Showdown.
Nope.
That's a very interesting like 2D, very like turn-based samurai. You're using like action points to like get behind people. It doesn't look very Into the Breach on the surface, but it has that same itch. Dungeon of the Endless, which is like a similar concept, but like a tower defense-y kind of thing. Templar Battle Force, maybe like heading more into like the Warhammer end of the spectrum, question mark, or 40K maybe. And then three more games on here just to wrap it up. Dungeon Death Ball, a game no one's ever heard of, but it's like blood sport, like 2D. It's hilarious. I
played some Dungeon Death Ball. It was pretty fun.
Yeah,
I think I beat it on my first run, but it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Mortal Glory, which just had a sequel come out, gladiator style, dudes on a map, sort of again, kind of like another sort of board game thing. Now, the one that I want to end with here, a game that no one ever thought would to be included on here, Mobile Suit Baba, a game by the creator of Baba Is You.
Whoa.
In a
What?
setting that looks almost identical to Into the Breach, with Baba Is You style mechanics, but Into the Breach Baba Is You. I don't know that this is a roguelike
Who is
game.
Baba? I know the answer to that, but
I don't think this is a roguelike game specifically, but I had to give this a shout out because of just how crazy it is. I did download it on itch when it was like there was like a free like alpha version of it going around. So I think I have like a pre-alpha release that I was playing around with. I'm like, this is the most insane mashup I've ever seen, and I'm all here for it. So Mobile Suit Baba on itch, give it a Google and be like, where has this been all my life?
What is this? This looks awesome.
Well, that's gonna wrap down. We're gonna power down our mechs for this episode. Woody, do you have any guest plugs to showcase?
Nope. I just hang out with you guys. That's it.
Okay.
You're the only guys who
we
are worth my
are
attention and
happy-
time.
What a guy. We're happy to have you as always. Good stuff.
We do have a listener request episode coming up pretty soon. So
Will looks terrified.
I mean, yeah, so like send like wherever you're listening to this, if there's a comment button below, shout into the ether of what game you want us to showcase next.
Can we say no?
Well, we can always say no, but you know, we have to give the listeners some kind of agency for them to torture us with either.
I don't want another Shattered Pixel Dungeon is what I'm trying to say.
That's
You know who you are.
I'm pretty sure
You
that
know who you are.
no.
So-
Okay.
I'm excited for it.
what's the
Quiet
game?
all of a sudden. All right.
Well, not
Oh.
determined yet. It's just
well,
sometimes
it's not determined yet. Well,
Oh, I see.
yeah,
I see.
this is a fishing for community engagement.
Got it.
Baiting
That's right.
segment. Like, hey, listeners, give us some ideas, and we'll pick from the hat, or whatever has the most votes or something. How we've done it in the past. But yeah, like send in that stuff. We have our email grogpodzone@gmail.com. You can send in your requests there. If you are one of 10 people on the internet who use Mastodon, you can find us at grogpod@gamedev.place. You can tell us what game you want us to play there. We'll add it to the list. And then our website, where if you want to see like all the other FTL or Into the Breach style games that we've played, or see all the other episodes that Woody's been on. Woody's been on all the good ones. Just find a Woody episode,
It's true.
and you're gonna have a good time. grogpod.zone. You can find all the categories and rankings and Google Sheets and Will's links to Will's Balatro simulators and everything like that.
I didn't actually give that, did I? Yeah.
No, you did. Yeah, you put it in the it's up on the website.
Oh, I think the
Give me
I
a
need
link.
to. Okay, good.
Your GitHub is exposed.
Okay, great.
Give Will some stars on GitHub. But our next episode, Andrew, did you land on
Interesting terminology. You should use the term land, because I have decided to make a last-minute adjust my angle of attack. My choice is officially Star of Providence. Get ready.
What does that have to do with landing?
you
They
might
shine
remember
fans because you fly a ship around.
if this name doesn't sound familiar, it's because this game was recently retitled from its original title, Monolith.
Oh, right.
Which they did to avoid any kind of potential lawsuits with I think Monolith Games is what they did that for.
Makers of Blood, of course. Indeed. So looking forward to trying that out. I am fond of space shooters, and this one is supposed to be a good one.
Exciting. Well, the bugs are dead. The podcast timeline is saved finally, but we're gonna have to abandon this timeline of Into the Breach for our next episode on Star of Providence. It's time for us to pull those jump seats and teleport out of our mechs that are burning to death here. We'll see you next time.